Episode 226. Didn't you say that I'm your man? Lionel nodded repeatedly while the detective scolded him, indicating that he had heard what the officers had said. He promised he would try to persuade Chloe not to cause any more trouble. Lionel then asked the detectives how Chloe had been saved. Had Dr. Cooper checked on the patient to see if there were any other medical issues? Logan and Dr. Cooper were standing off to the side. When they heard what was being discussed, they told the detectives that Mike had injected Chloe's neck with a mild tranquilizer and then grabbed her before she fell. It was the only way they believed she could survive this. "Mike, where's the needle you used? Let the detectives take a look," Dr. Cooper told the bodyguard. The doctor smiled confidently, in sharp contrast to the serious expression on Logan's face. Logan walked Violet to the couch, instructing her to sit and rest, and then went back to ignoring her. He was probably still a little angry. Violet did not understand and carefully hid the wound on her arm. She did not see Mike holding a syringe and was confused by what Dr. Cooper was describing. How had Mike managed to both inject and grab Chloe at the same time? It didn't make sense. But Logan wasn't paying attention to her, so she couldn't ask him for more details. She could only look on as people dealt with the aftermath. Violet was being treated like a child. When Lionel saw her sitting on her own, he became concerned. He went to Violet and asked her if she was okay. He tried to apologize to her. "I'm sorry if I said anything irrational and made you uncomfortable, Violet. I was just worried about Chloe's safety and would have said anything to get her to come down. I hope you can understand. And forgive me." Lionel seemed sincere, but Violet didn't trust him. "Don't worry about it. It's good that Chloe was saved. But you need to make sure she gets help now." Violet was still angry, but she did not have the energy to confront Lionel. To be honest, if Chloe had died today in front of her, it would have haunted Violet for the rest of her life. She would probably see Chloe jumping off the building in her dreams. Violet was a little worried about Chloe's mental state, but she would let Lionel be the one to keep an eye on her cousin. Violet hoped Lionel would find someone for Chloe to talk to. He needed to find her a psychiatrist. "I know," Lionel replied. "I will remember what you said." Even if Chloe was evil to the bone, she would definitely treat Lionel well. Violet still had a lingering fear. She could only hope that Lionel and Chloe would disappear for the rest of their lives and not return to torture her again. "You know that Chloe likes to be stubborn, but I will try to get her to seek help. Anyway, there's no point in making plans now. I'll wait until she wakes up before deciding what to do," Lionel added. Violet nodded, but did not say anything else. She looked over at Logan again. Lionel saw this and his eyes sparkled. He lowered his head and walked to Chloe's bedside and sat down. Mike told the police about how he rescued Chloe. He said it was obvious that Chloe was not in her right mind. She was acting irrationally, and her paranoia that someone was trying to sabotage her had escalated the situation to a dangerous level. Mike told them he firmly believed sedating Chloe was the only way to save her. The officers nodded and took notes. They seemed satisfied with Mike's version of events. But Violet was still silently confused. The surrounding crowd gradually dispersed. Chloe lay on the bed, completely unaware of anything. The room also slowly returned to silence. The policemen who were handling the case congratulated Mike for saving lives. They told Lionel he should be grateful Mike had been there. Lionel nodded, but said nothing more. Logan asked Corey to see the officers out. Corey nodded and followed the detectives out of the room. This was a Kingston family issue, and Logan wanted to make sure the detectives kept Violet's name out of the official record as much as possible. He had sent Corey out with the officers so that he could speak to them privately about this. If the detectives failed to cooperate, Logan would go over their heads to the chief of police if he had to. He did not want Violet involved. Logan looked over at Lionel, who sat beside Chloe. He looked like the dutiful future son-in-law of the Kingston family. But Logan was even warier of Lionel than he had been before. Logan now knew that there was more going on with Lionel than he let on. When Chloe was in danger, Lionel had not grabbed his fiancé's hand, but instead had lunged for Violet. Logan did not know what the Kingston family would think if they found out about this. "We can leave now." Logan stood in front of Violet and looked down at her. He did not know what this woman was thinking. Logan guessed she was in shock. Her doe-like eyes stared up at him in a daze. For a moment, he could not say anything either. Lionel also looked over and smiled at Violet, indicating that there was nothing else for them to do here. Lionel's silence unsettled Violet a little, but as she stood up from the couch, she said to him, "Despite the issues between us, Lionel, I still have to thank you for saving me earlier." "You're welcome, Violet. I'm glad I was here to help. But it's Logan's bodyguard that really deserves all the credit," Lionel told her. Violet glanced at Logan again and thought that there was something fishy about Mike's rescue story. While the bodyguard's actions had been heroic, Violet suspected his story wasn't the whole story. What did Logan do? She wondered. Logan was finally ready to go home, and she didn't want to annoy him by making him wait. She didn't know why he had come to the hospital. Was he here to do something? Did it have something to do with her? Or maybe he had come to talk to Chloe. Violet didn't think Logan would come here just for her. Or would he? Logan watched the wheels in Violet's head spinning as she tried to piece together what had happened today. He always found Violet adorable when she was trying to work out some problem in her head. Violet felt that she was thinking too highly of herself. Why would Logan possibly come to the hospital just for her? But then again, she looked up at him with watery eyes and bit the corner of her lips. "Thank you," she whispered softly to him. "What are you thanking me for?" Logan asked. "Didn't you say that I'm your man? What is there to thank me for?" Although Logan's face was still closed off, his voice was low and hoarse. Since he was her man, shouldn't he protect her? Although he had never been in love before, Violet had given him 2 children. He could do this thing with her. It actually felt natural. When he returned, Chloe discovered that his arrogant, cold, and unsentimental boss seemed to be blushing. Corey smiled. He had heard, like everyone else, what Violet had told Chloe about Logan. From beginning to end, he's my man. Violet had declared their relationship to the world and had faced her fears to do so. Violet always claimed that she was timid and wouldn't dare to speak up, but today she had, and she'd done it for Logan. And by the look on his boss's face, it seemed that Logan was quite pleased with what she had said. Corey watched the corners of the boss's mouth curl up into a rare smile. Obviously, Logan was very happy about whatever he and Violet were discussing. Episode 227. What do you think of Garrett? Miranda and Charles had never been great leaders. If not for Logan's help over the past 4 years, the Kingston group would have gone bankrupt. Miranda's lack of leadership skills had never been more evident than now, as she tried to resolve her family's scandals and keep the Kingston group solvent. Frankly, Miranda had already been struggling. But when Chloe decided to try to jump off a building and take Violet with her, it was Miranda that had been pushed to the edge. How much more could one family take? Now Logan had delivered an ultimatum to the Kingston family and Elizabeth. Chloe had to transfer out of Central Hospital, or Logan would immediately cut off all business dealings with the Kingston family and revoke all financial help he had given Elizabeth. Miranda believed that Chloe would agree to the transfer if she was conscious, so she told Lionel to go ahead with the move. He would see to all the arrangements. Lionel was livid at Logan's threats. He was becoming more and more jealous of Logan. Lionel had also become more and more demanding of Elizabeth. Miranda's plate was very full. It was not easy to find someone to investigate the background of Charles's mistress, Sylvia. Turned out that she and Charles had actually met at his golf club. Miranda suspected that Sylvia had gone there for the rich men. This woman was definitely after Charles's money, and her husband seemed ready to give it to her. He even wanted to give Sylvia some responsibilities in the company. If Miranda didn't take care of this problem immediately, by the time the child was born, it might be too late. It would truly be an endless amount of trouble. While Miranda was sitting at her desk, pondering the problem of what to do about Sylvia, her secretary buzzed her to say that the police were on the phone. Miranda felt a chill of apprehension go through her, but she calmly picked up the phone to speak with the officers. The detectives told her that they had some good news. They had found another suspect to interview. They had said that in a few days they would interrogate the criminal who had caused Chloe to have her miscarriage. The police told Miranda they were determined to solve Chloe's case quickly because of the irreversible damage she had suffered. The detectives promised to thoroughly investigate and leave no stone unturned in their search for justice. When Miranda heard this, she knew the officers expected her to be gratified by all they were doing. But for her, this was not good news. Miranda was extremely anxious. If the LAPD continued to investigate, and it was discovered that this whole mess had been the result of Chloe's plan, the Kingston family would be in even bigger trouble. And not just with the police. It would be hard to explain such actions to Logan. Not only would it be difficult to explain, but Miranda was also afraid that Logan would take revenge. Violet was the mother of his 2 children. Chloe's scheming would do them no favors where the Alexander family was concerned. Miranda quickly got up and left to go see Elizabeth. She needed her daughter to talk to Logan. This case could not continue. If the authorities continued to investigate, this could ruin the Kingston family. Elizabeth was at home, having finished filming for the day, and was resting outside on the deck of her Hollywood Hills home. Her house had been a gift from Logan. Although it could not be compared to his own home, it was still worth 7 figures, and it was listed under Elizabeth's name. The view from her deck was spectacular, but Elizabeth only cared about how her nails looked. Her personal beautician had just finished changing her polish color when her mother arrived. As Elizabeth admired her beautiful nails, she listened to her mother babble. She knew that her mother's visit today meant that she wanted something. Sure enough, Mother told her that she needed Elizabeth to talk to Logan. "There's no time to waste, Elizabeth. The Kingston family's problems are piling up, and public opinion is turning against us. Elizabeth, you need to handle this. Talk to Logan for me, please," Miranda pleaded. Elizabeth didn't reply right away. Instead, she raised her hand higher and let the sunlight reflect off the huge diamond ring on her thumb. It just so happened to reflect her beautiful face, and Elizabeth laughed, emotionlessly. Miranda knew that her daughter was pretty. Both of her daughters had their own unique characteristics. One was bubbly and elegant, while the other one was noble and distant. But for some reason, Logan had never cared much about Elizabeth. Miranda tried again. "Elizabeth, that shameless woman, Violet, is really good at hooking men. Now she has discovered that those 2 brats of hers are actually Logan's flesh and blood. Daughter, you have to hurry up." "What do you want me to do, Mother? Climb into Logan's bed?" Elizabeth remarked. "If that's what it takes, yes. You are going to get married in the future. Doesn't matter if you sleep together first," Miranda told her. "Logan doesn't really like Violet. He just wants to use her. Let Violet know that she has competition." "Mother, what nonsense are you talking about? Violet is no competition for me. She's just a secretary. Even if she gave birth to Logan's children, she was just a vessel. There was no desire or emotion. Logan doesn't like her," Elizabeth responded. Yes, you are right. My thinking is wrong. How about this? You should let Philly quickly think of a plan for you. We do not have much time left." Miranda's anxiety was at an all-time high. She held her daughter's hand and urged her on. "I know, Mommy. Now that Chloe is out of commission, the Kingston family can rely on me. I will not let you down." Elizabeth combed her fingers through her long, curly hair, a face full of satisfaction. If she performed well at the gala, Logan would definitely be interested in her. Elizabeth believed that if she was intimate with Logan just one time, he would become besotted with her. Miranda now asked, "When are you going to talk to Logan? You need to tell him not to investigate Chloe's attack." "Logan already told me that this matter has nothing to do with him. The last time we spoke, he told me to persuade Chloe to try to be happy with Lionel and move on. He asked me if he should get involved with the investigation on her attack, but I told him no, not to trouble himself. He won't get further involved." Elizabeth knew that the Kingstons could not let Chloe's case be investigated. If the man who attacked her decided to talk, Chloe would be ruined. More than that, Elizabeth did not want to use this issue to bother Logan again. Elizabeth wanted Logan to save all his favors for her. "Mommy, it was not easy for Logan to agree to accompany me to the gala. If something goes wrong between now and then, you should know that my production company is currently in a difficult situation. It will be harder for me to live in the future without his help." "That company was originally created by Logan to support you. You've also earned him a lot of money." Miranda rolled her eyes. This daughter of hers was so naive. "Mommy, the necklace that Logan gave me was worth $10 million. Do you think I could earn that much for him in a year?" Elizabeth curled her lips. If she made that much money, Elizabeth wouldn't be in the state she was in now, afraid that she would lose everything if she gave up on Logan. All she had were her fans and a limited acting resume. She did not have any sponsors backing her. She was afraid that without Logan, she would soon find herself demoted to the D-list, a has-been that no one in the business would want to hire. Elizabeth could not live a life without luxury, drinking, and gourmet food. After tasting the spotlight, she did not want to go back to the humdrum life she had lived before. When Miranda heard what Elizabeth said, it seemed that it was indeed so. If Logan really rejected Elizabeth, then the Kingston family would be without any options. "I've thought about it," Miranda said. "We can't put all our eggs in one basket." Miranda had gotten to where she was today by being the other woman. With a bit of passion, she had stolen Charles from his fiancé and married him herself. There was nothing wrong with some competition. Miranda would not admit defeat. She always felt that Violet's dead mother Dahlia was stalking her like a ghost, waiting in the corner to watch Miranda fail. She would not let a dead woman get what she wanted. "What do you mean, Mom?" Elizabeth heard what her mother had said, and her eyes flickered. "Do you mean—" Miranda nodded. "What do you think of Garrett?" Episode 228. A Different Kind of Charm. Miranda was concerned about Elizabeth's stalled relationship with Logan, so she had asked her daughter what she thought of Garrett. Garrett was the second most powerful man in Los Angeles. Elizabeth thought about how Garrett was so attentive to her. His brown curly hair and the two deep dimples on his tan skin made her smile. Although his looks were not quite as good as Logan's, he was still the target of many a Los Angeles socialite. Of course, we can't give up on Logan yet, but what harm would there be in also getting to know Garrett better? What do you think, sweetheart? Why should a charming girl like you have only one man chasing her? A little competition might be just the thing to get both men's attention. Miranda did not feel that there was anything wrong with having multiple suitors. This was the advantage of being a beautiful woman. "Mommy, I know. I will ask Garrett about Chloe's situation." Elizabeth suddenly thought that perhaps she could use this matter as an opportunity to get closer to Garrett and see how he feels about her. As long as Logan did not know about it, it would be fine. She wanted to see what Garrett's intentions were with her and what he was willing to do. If he dared to make a move on Elizabeth, it would mean that the Gardner family's influence rivaled that of the Alexander family. Elizabeth told Miranda that she would call Garrett. The gala was this week. Elizabeth decided to offer to treat Garrett to dinner tomorrow night. While mother and daughter were completing their plans, Lionel called and asked Miranda to go to the hospital to see Chloe. He hadn't been back to the office for several days because of Chloe's situation, so he needed Miranda to come to relieve him and sit with Chloe. Was that Lionel? Elizabeth had heard his voice through the phone. He has been through so much recently. I will go to the hospital later to visit Chloe. Yes, you go visit Chloe. I still have so much to do. Miranda needed to find someone to get rid of the man who attacked Chloe before he talked. Plus, there was the matter of what to do about Charles's pregnant mistress. There just weren't enough hours in the day for her to deal with all the Kingston scandals. Let Elizabeth waste her time sitting with Chloe. Make sure you aren't recognized, Elizabeth. We don't want what Chloe's done to impact your reputation, Miranda added. No one will know I'm there. I'll wear a mask, a hat, and a pair of sunglasses. I won't even bring a bunch of assistants with me. It will give away how important I am, Elizabeth said. Then Elizabeth gritted her teeth and added, Why is Violet so shameless? If not for her, I would be engaged to Logan right now, and Chloe would not have needed to do what she did. Miranda agreed, gnashing her teeth in anger. Chloe's latest plan almost worked too. Lionel and the crowd were all putting pressure on Violet to admit it. She would have eventually caved if Logan and his bodyguard hadn't interfered. What a mess. You need to hurry up and get to Logan. We're running out of time. What's the rush? Elizabeth asked. You know Agnes will never allow Violet to become an Alexander. Yes, but that old hag has always looked down on the Kingston family. Agnes would consider you a more suitable daughter-in-law than Violet, but there is no guarantee that she will ultimately accept the match. Suddenly Miranda's eyes lit up as she turned to Elizabeth with a new idea. What we need is an alliance with someone else in the Alexander family. And I know the perfect person. Who is it, Mommy? Elizabeth sat up straighter at Miranda's clear excitement. Logan's mother, Joanna. Miranda replied with a wicked smile. Joanna was notorious. She was beautiful and vivacious and had been pursued by every young man in Los Angeles. Joanna had become famous when she married Logan's father, Christopher Alexander, and she had become infamous when she cheated on him with Garrett's father, Jackson Gardner. She knew how to play the game and was willing to operate in morally gray areas. Elizabeth's eyes lit up. It feels like I'm playing with the whole family in the palm of my hand. I think this is just too much fun. That woman is such a vixen. She had both Christopher and Jackson eating out of the palm of her hand. As far as Elizabeth was concerned, Joanna might just be her idol. Yes, and the gossips say that the two men even knew about each other, but they still wouldn't let her go. Miranda was so jealous. If she had had Joanna's way with men, she wouldn't have had to settle on Charles all those years ago, a man who had now cheated on her and knocked up a gold digger. Logan's mother, Elizabeth said softly while thinking. She had known Logan for a long time and had never heard him mention his mother. Elizabeth felt that this might be her chance to turn things around. I know. I will ask Garrett and get some information out of him about my future mother-in-law. It will definitely be helpful when the time comes. If Elizabeth was sought after by both Garrett and Logan, as Joanna had been by their fathers, no one in Los Angeles would dare try to keep the Kingston family in check. Miranda looked at Elizabeth and clenched her fists. She swore that she would make her daughter the most enviable woman in L.A. After Miranda left, Elizabeth went to the hospital to see Chloe. When she arrived, Lionel had just changed his clothes. He was probably planning on leaving when Miranda arrived. Things were very busy at the Kingston group. He had been stuck with Chloe in the hospital for too long. Although Lionel's company was doing well now, it was hard to change people's prejudices. He relied on the Kingston family's strength to rebuild his own business, so he had to work hard for the Kingston group. Lionel, you've been working so hard, Elizabeth's sweet voice echoed in the room, comforting Lionel's tired body and mind. Why are you here, Elizabeth? Where's your mother? I thought Miranda was coming. Lionel looked behind Elizabeth. I came alone. Mother has some matters to attend to and can't come to visit for the time being. I offered to sit with Chloe, Elizabeth told him, smiling softly. Well, I'm of course happy to see you. Just surprised. Lionel smiled and led Elizabeth to the couch to sit down. Their relationship was platonic. They were soon to be related. Lionel decided it should not be a problem for them to have some physical contact. Lionel looked at Elizabeth gently and rubbed her hands. Are you cold? I'm not cold. The heater in the car was running. Elizabeth's face was a little red because she was blushing from Lionel's attention. It was strange. Why had she never noticed that Lionel was so good-looking before? His glasses made him look mature and refined. Elizabeth thought he looked very sexy. The movie I starred in has finished filming. My next project is still in pre-production, so I'm not needed on set yet. I can come and visit Chloe whenever you need me to, Elizabeth assured. Oh, I understand. Then I will just stay here. Don't let Miranda worry. I will take good care of Chloe. Lionel had a lot on his mind, but he tried his best not to show it. He smiled gently at Elizabeth. No wonder Chloe and Violet like you, Lionel. Elizabeth leaned in a bit closer to him and looked up at her sister's fiancé tenderly. You are so thoughtful and caring. Lionel's refined manner was so completely different from bad-tempered Logan's. Elizabeth decided Lionel had a different kind of charm. Episode 229. It looks worse than it is. Elizabeth looked at Lionel with admiration. His refined manner was completely different from bad-tempered Logan's. He had a different kind of charm. Lionel, you are so good to Chloe. She's lucky to have you, Elizabeth sweetly told Lionel. Elizabeth's warm palm remained in Lionel's hand as she got closer and closer to him. The two of them were sitting on the couch in Chloe's hospital room, but neither of them was paying any attention to the patient. Although she was completely different from Violet, the strong fragrance from Elizabeth's body flooded Lionel's nose. It also made him take a serious look at Elizabeth for the first time. Although Elizabeth was undeniably beautiful, Lionel thought she could not compare with Violet. Still, Elizabeth had a figure with curves in all the right places and eyes that sparkled. The Kingston women were all great beauties. Lionel had known this since he was young. The atmosphere in the room became somewhat ambiguous for a moment. Elizabeth acted as if she did not notice, and let Lionel see the brand new necklace that dipped into her cleavage. She continued to hold Lionel's hand while using the fingertips of her other to slowly play with her necklace. Watching the mesmerizing play of light against Elizabeth's chest, Lionel couldn't help but imagine what the jade green pendant would look like against Elizabeth's voluptuous, naked body. Lionel's grip tightened painfully on Elizabeth's hand as a flood of desire hit him. Oh, Elizabeth said, startled. Her watery eyes looked at Lionel pitifully. Lionel, you hurt me. I'm sorry. I'll blow on it for you. Lionel quickly put Elizabeth's hand close to his lips. What are you two doing? Chloe asked from her position on the bed. She had just woken up to this scene. If Logan knew how often Lionel was daydreaming about Violet, he would probably ask the Kingstons to fire him. That way, when Violet eventually took over the Kingston group, the two of them still wouldn't have any contact. While Logan didn't know exactly what Lionel was thinking, he knew the man hadn't given up on Violet yet. The fact that Lionel had chosen to save Violet over Chloe on the balcony tonight had made it perfectly clear to Logan that Lionel still had strong feelings for Violet. Fortunately, Logan was really confident. He didn't think any man would be able to snatch Violet away from him. By the time Logan and Violet arrived home from the hospital, the atmosphere between them was fairly peaceful. Violet was relieved to be home safe, and she took the initiative to apologize to Logan for not telling him she was going to visit Chloe. Violet also informed him that she had no idea why Lionel had chosen to save her over Chloe. "You really don't know?" Logan asked her doubtfully. "The man doesn't care about his own fiancée and is throwing himself at you, and you have no idea why. Please, Violet, you are not that innocent. The man clearly still wants you," Logan ranted. He had still calmed down, and now seemed more annoyed than angry, so Violet was relieved and said nothing more. After returning home, Logan and Violet were both tired and hungry. Zoe hurriedly prepared some food for them. After Logan ate, he went upstairs. He did not go to the study, as usual. Instead, he went into his bedroom. Logan couldn't stay angry with Violet. After all, she had said that he was the only man in her life. Her whereabouts had always been under his control, and she hadn't been the one to contact Lionel. Logan had to be content with this. However, he couldn't control his heart. Logan still couldn't 100% trust Violet. Although not every woman was like his mother, who had manipulated and lied to his father, who could guarantee that Violet was as pure and sincere as she seemed? Logan's thoughts were a jumbled mess. He took a shower and wrapped himself in a bathrobe, then exited the bathroom while scrubbing his hair dry with a towel. He had planned to go to the study to read a few documents and try to calm himself, but he saw that Violet had entered the bedroom at some point. She was sitting on the couch like she was waiting for a trial. Her brows were lowered, and the corners of her eyes were red from crying. She was still wearing the clothes she had worn to the hospital. Her sleeves were dirty and torn, and her arms were scratched and bruised. Logan exploded in an instant. "What were you thinking?" He threw his towel down and stalked over to stand in front of Violet with his hands on his hips. "What's wrong?" Violet was surprised. She had been sitting in a daze and thinking about everything that had happened that day. She'd heard Logan showering, and she'd felt a rush of heat that made her blush. She could not think clearly, and her heart was in shambles. Although she had been intimate with Logan every day for months, she now felt inexplicably nervous. It was as if she was a teenage girl again facing her first crush, Lionel. Back then, just one look from Lionel could make her blush, her heart beat faster, and her whole body would go soft. But her reaction to Lionel in the past could not remotely compare to how she felt now when she saw Logan emerge from the bathroom. She felt as if she would drown from her desire. It was obvious that she had no feelings for Lionel anymore, because she could feel the difference when she looked at Logan. This man was too dangerous. Violet felt like she could not breathe. She pressed her hand to her chest and took a deep breath. "What's wrong?" "Come here." Logan turned around and went back into the bathroom. He flipped open the medicine cabinet and took out the first aid kit. Violet quickly followed Logan, but she couldn't look at him, so she lowered her eyes. Unfortunately, looking down was no better than up, as now Violet could see his broad chest and his washboard abs peeking out of his bathrobe. "What were you thinking? Didn't I ask you earlier if you needed medical attention?" As Logan spoke, his chest trembled. It was obvious that he was really upset. Violet even had an impulse to pat his chest to tell him not to worry. She was fine. Did not hurt very much. The staff was too busy. Besides, I didn't want to stay at the hospital any longer. I just wanted to come home. When they were in the car, she had covered her arm with her clothes. Logan hadn't realized that Violet's arm was so badly hurt. "But you were injured and hid it from me. Why? I would not bite your head off for getting hurt," Logan sneered. "Then who is going to bite me?" Violet tried to break the tension with a joke. Unfortunately, the opposite happened, and Logan grew even more irritated. "Maybe Lionel will bite if you ask nicely. Why don't I have Henry drive you back to the hospital? Chloe might not have been transferred yet, and Lionel will still be there," Logan replied. "No!" Violet quickly pulled her arm back and scowled at him. Logan stared at her intensely, and he looked extremely fierce, but his touch was gentle when he took her arm again and carefully started to treat her wounds. "It looks worse than it is. Actually, It doesn't hurt very much. I bet ouch! Just as Violet said that it didn't hurt, Logan pressed on her arm. Violet rolled her eyes at him and said, "Can you not bully me? If Adam and Amy knew you treated me like this, they would think you were very mean," she told him with a pout. Violet's was a face with boundless beauty, but when she made that expression, she became pure and innocent, tempting to touch. "Is that so? Then why don't you ask the children why adults don't know how to take care of themselves? Shouldn't their mother set a good example for them?" Logan's voice could not help but be filled with lust. It was very sexy. In the dark night, it almost made Violet feel intoxicated. "All right, you have a point." Violet could not argue with him. Violet pursed her lips and quietly watched him carefully treat her arm. When he was close to being done, Violet thought Logan might be calm enough for her to ask the question most on her mind. "Can I see the children this week?" What she was most afraid of was Logan venting his anger by depriving her of the opportunity to see her children. Episode 230. A grumpy bully who's always angry. Violet was afraid, with what happened at the hospital, that Logan would vent his anger by depriving her of the opportunity to see the children. "Why wouldn't you be able to see the children? I told you what my grandmother said." Logan glanced up at her as he continued to treat her injuries. Although his eyes were cold, it gave Violet a different feeling. He was being much gentler than usual, which gave her the courage to say what she was feeling. She could talk to him. "I was afraid you were unhappy with me and wouldn't let me see them." If he wasn't happy, she would be tormented. Wasn't this something that Logan often threatened her with? But Violet could tell, with a sigh of relief, that the thought hadn't occurred to him. Logan wouldn't use their children to punish her. She looked up at Logan again, totally unaware of how flirtatious her gaze had become. Logan frowned and held the woman's wrist in his palm. His frown deepened. "Are you eating enough? Is Zoe's food not to your liking? I hope you don't look at other people like that, especially men." Violet quickly retracted her gaze and said seriously, "No, I eat all the time. I'm just naturally thin." "And what's wrong with the way I look at people?" Violet asked him, disgruntled. She thought Logan was just nitpicking. "So it's not because you don't like Zoe's cooking?" Logan asked. "Of course not." Perhaps it was annoying to say it out loud, but Violet had always been slim and didn't even have to exercise to stay that way. She just didn't gain weight. But she did have curves, and they were in Logan's two favorite places. "Natural. That's really good." Logan looked at her and smiled. He sighed with emotion. His voice was different than usual. He sounded a bit playful, as if he was teasing her. Violet was feeling shy and embarrassed, as if she was trying to seduce him. She twisted her body and tried to withdraw her arm because she felt that the two of them were simply too close. She felt Logan's hot breath on her face as he held her in place, and she felt an inexplicable pleasure. "Stay right where you are. I'm not finished," Logan warned her. "And I also haven't settled today's score with you, yet." "Score? What score? I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have talked to Lionel. Haven't I already apologized? Why did this man have to be so hard to get along with? He never changed." Logan finished cleaning her wounds. He applied antiseptic, then wrapped her arm with thin gauze and taped it in place. "Why did you go to the hospital without telling me? What pushed you to go there?" He pulled Violet up and said, "Go and take a shower first. We'll talk after." "Then you are not allowed to be angry," she told him. "I'm not angry." "Yes, you are. Again. I can tell." Violet did not want to leave the conversation for later. Again? Logan asked her with a frown. It seemed that in Violet's opinion he was a grumpy bully who was always angry. This was her impression of him? Do you dislike me? Is that why you were so cozy with Lionel earlier? He asked her. What nonsense are you talking about? I already told you. I don't like Lionel, and I certainly don't want to be cozy with him. Just stop being angry. What happened today was my fault. I shouldn't have gone to the hospital without telling you. I was curious to hear what Chloe wanted to talk to me about, and honestly didn't think it would be a problem, especially since I planned to bring Mike along with me. I never dreamed Chloe would be crazy enough to try to jump off a building. Violet felt wronged. Why was she being blamed for her cousin's insanity? Logan looked at her sternly. I have already told you that I must protect myself. I can't spend every minute of the day running around dealing with the aftermath of your mess. Do you understand? Ever since Violet joined the Smith group, he had spent a lot of time and manpower on her. Logan didn't even have to think about whether or not it was worth it. Violet was the mother of his children, and he would always protect her. He just wished the naive woman wouldn't make it so damn difficult. Understood. I will try not to cause you any more trouble. I'll definitely remember what you've said. Violet's face was red as she stared at her hands. Other than Noah and Haley, Logan was the only one helping her, and he had done it time and time again. I'll go take a bath. Can we just stop talking about this? Violet stored the memories of everything Logan had done for her in her heart. Sooner or later, she would return the favor. She didn't want Logan to be angry with her. Whether it was physically or mentally, she couldn't bear it. He was the father of her children. Even if they weren't husband and wife, Violet still wanted to get along well with him. Otherwise, what would happen to the children? She didn't want them to see their parents always arguing. They had to try to get along as peacefully as possible. No fighting. Even if they couldn't become a family. Adam and Amy deserved two loving co-parents. I didn't say that I would forgive you just like that. Logan was not easy to fool. Then what do you want? Violet felt a little discouraged. She really did not know how to make him happy. But if Logan told her what to do, she would be glad to do it. The Rutherford family should be making a move on Chloe's matter very soon. And I know that Charles wants to put the Kingston family mansion up for sale. Logan told Violet about what he had heard. Sell the old residence? How can that be? Violet was distraught. That was the place where her grandfather and parents had lived. After losing her parents, Charles and Miranda used the excuse of taking care of Violet to convince her grandfather to let them move into the mansion. They agreed that when Violet grew up and could take over the estate, her uncle and aunt would move out. At the time, Violet had felt that her grandfather was being somewhat cold and heartless. Now that she thought about it, she suspected that her grandfather had already seen her family's true colors. The house is very old and needs updating. Charles has probably decided that the Kingston Group CEO can do better. Logan lightly twirled Violet's hair as he spoke. It felt very soft to his touch. It was like silk. He pretended not to be watching Violet's face. Sure enough, her eyebrows were lowered, and her clear eyes were filled with sadness and disappointment. How can they be like this? It seemed like other than her, no one else would remember the contribution of her grandfather and parents to the Kingston Group. Now, even the home that she had grown up in was going to be taken from her. How could she be expected to accept this? What should she do? What could she do to keep the Kingston residence from falling into someone else's hands? Let's get you into the bath first. Logan tipped up Violet's delicate chin with his fingertip. After your bath, we'll think of a solution. Together, we'll figure this out. Episode 231. No trouble at all. Logan had asked Violet to take a bath, but then he didn't move. He just stood there and watched her quietly. Any woman would be moved by his eyes on them, and Violet found herself feeling unexpectedly emotional. She tried to remind herself that their relationship was purely physical. "It will be hard for you to wash yourself with your injured arm, so I will help you." Logan smiled and pulled her hand towards the bathroom. Wait, what? Did he mean he was going to bathe her himself? Violet looked at him with wide, slightly panicked eyes. The expression on Violet's face both charmed and amused Logan. Right now, she looked as if he had just told her some shocking secret. She watched Logan carefully, as if she was afraid any sudden movement would cause him to pounce. With her seductive almond eyes, Logan thought it was no wonder men were unable to resist her. She was half innocent, half temptress. Like a puppet on a string, Logan steered Violet towards the bath. Her steps were unsteady, as if she had lost all her strength and needed him to hold her up, or she'd tumble to the ground. No wonder Lionel had still not given up on Violet, Logan thought. Even Garrett had been making subtle moves to get closer to her. Logan had to admit that he had found a treasure. Even after spending so much time with her, he still did not feel the slightest bit of annoyance towards Violet. And he had definitely not grown tired of having sex with her. Instead, he seemed to crave her more and more. Logan was even thinking about bringing her along with him on a business trip next week. His only hesitation was what to do about the children. Her cheeks were rosy with embarrassment, which Logan found adorable. She couldn't wash herself easily, so Logan had thought the least he could do was help. It was the gentlemanly thing to do. Although looking at her right now, the things Logan wanted to do to her were far from chivalrous. Logan gave Violet a devilish smile at his thoughts. Seeing the heated look in Logan's eyes, Violet's blush deepened. Really, there's no need for you to help me. I wouldn't want to trouble you," Violet told him hoarsely. Logan's wicked smile grew, and when he answered her, his voice was pure as sin. "Oh, I can assure you, Violet, it's no trouble at all. It would be my pleasure to assist you." Logan put his hand on her back, causing Violet to tremble. She could only helplessly let him lead her the rest of the way into the bathroom. Logan turned on the tub, then rolled up his sleeve to test the water temperature. He was still wearing his bathrobe, which made him look even more delicious. His long legs crossed each other as he stood. He was much taller than Violet. Every time he moved, she imagined him lifting her up and placing her between his legs. Thinking of this made Violet grow hot. "I can use my arm to support you, so your bandages won't get wet." Now Violet couldn't help but think of how it felt to have his strong arms wrapped around her. The bathroom seemed to become unbearably warm, but she knew it wasn't because of the steam. She felt sweat sliding down her back, and she could hear her own chaotic heartbeat pounding in her chest. Her breathing became more labored, and she grabbed at her chest. "What's wrong? Are you all right?" Logan had turned around and seen her movements. He moved to her side and placed the back of his hand against her forehead. "You don't seem to have a fever." "No, it's not a fever. I just feel like I can't breathe. It must be the day catching up with me. I had a bad scare." Violet told herself that was probably the reason. There was no other way to explain her sudden weakness, pounding heart, and labored breathing. It couldn't be because of the way the man standing in front of her made her feel. "You're so delicate. It's a good thing I'm here to take care of you," Logan said, quietly, as he pulled her closer. "Come here. Let me help you." Logan pushed Violet's hair off her shoulders, and then reached to undo the first button of her sweater. Violet grabbed his wrist in a panic. "No, I can do it myself." This was really too embarrassing. She had never been undressed by anyone else before. How could she be expected to just stand here and let him slowly undo her buttons one by one? When his fingers brushed her skin, Violet felt as if her entire body was on fire. "What did I say? Didn't you promise me just a few minutes ago that you would try to be more cooperative? Now stand still and let me help you." Logan clicked his tongue. He knew that Violet had been badly frightened today and that her arm was injured. He reined himself in and controlled his hands as he carefully began to undress her, even though the desire to explore Violet's body was torturing him. Violet was so overwhelmed by his hands on her that she seemed to forget where she was. She looked up at him in a daze, causing Logan to clench his jaw in an effort to rein in his desires. He had really planned to just undress the woman and give her a bath, but she was making it very difficult by looking at him like that. He tried to keep his thoughts from straying as he finished undressing her. Logan had by now seen Violet's body countless times, but he never seemed to get over how shockingly beautiful she was. Lionel was truly blind. He was willing to betray and abandon such an amazing woman. Well, it was useless for him to regret it now. Violet was now Logan's woman, and he dared Lionel to try to take her from him. The irritation Logan had felt the whole night seemed to dissolve as he looked at the woman in front of him. It seemed like a miracle that Violet had come into his life a second time. He shuddered to think what would have happened if they had not met again, if he had not met the children this woman had given birth to for him. Logan placed his strong, calloused hand on Violet's stomach. His large hand spanned almost her whole body. Violet trembled slightly. "Cold?" he asked her in his deep voice. "No, it's not. I'm not." She was just nervousness and desire. Violet felt so shy that she did not know what to do. She raised her arms to cover herself, but he gently stopped her. "No, don't hide from me. You have nothing to be embarrassed about. You are very beautiful," he told her softly. Violet felt even shyer at his compliment, and she was unable to speak. Logan's hand felt hot against her skin. When he moved his hand and began to gently stroke her stomach, Violet moaned and was pulled into his arms. Logan's fingers stroked her flat abdomen in soft circles. 2 children had grown and been born here. Women were so amazing in that they could walk through the gates of hell to have a child. In the past, Logan might not have felt anything. But after spending so much time with Violet, he was more and more impressed by the powerful strength she possessed in her delicate body. "Is this the place that gave life to our children?" He held Violet in his arms and gently stroked the unblemished skin of her stomach. It was hard to believe this woman had given birth to twins. Episode 232. After Hours. Violet felt delicate in Logan's arms, but he knew she was full of beautiful strength. She had given birth to their children, and Logan felt a rush of gratitude for the 2 gifts this woman had given him. He looked at the woman in his arms. She was a sight to behold. Violet's beauty never failed to amaze Logan. She was exquisite. No wonder he was so deeply immersed in her. Humans were visual animals. He could not deny the lust she made him feel. At first, he had been drawn to the physical aspects of her appearance, but the more time they spent together, he knew it was now the whole woman that he wanted. Violet did not speak. She shyly buried her face in Logan's chest and did not dare to look at him. But Logan held her chin and tipped her head up, She looked at him, and he saw her passion mirrored his own. Logan did not hesitate to bend down and taste Violet's plump lips. He was actually trembling, as if the kiss came from the depths of his soul. He had never been so excited before. Her pouty lips seemed to taste even sweeter than usual. Logan licked at the seam of Violet's mouth, and when she opened it for him, he groaned before deepening their kiss. He kissed Violet passionately. One hand was holding Violet's waist, while he buried his other hand in her soft hair. When the woman was gasping for breath, he controlled himself and broke the kiss. Their mutual desire was evident in their swollen lips. It was simply unbearable to look at her without wanting more. Violet's face was flushed and enticing. They stood for a long moment after their kiss, both feeling the same thing. Something felt different tonight. This was not the first time they had kissed, but it was as if the emotions of the day made everything more raw, more new. Finally, Logan leaned down and picked Violet up. He carried her easily as if she weighed nothing, and then gently placed her in the bathtub. The warm water wrapped around her, and Violet sighed happily. It was so comfortable. "You're not feeling well tonight, so I'll let you go this time. Make it up to me later." Logan kissed her affectionately on top of her head, then positioned himself on the side of the tub so he could support her arm. When Violet glanced over to reply, she forgot how good the bath felt. She could see through Logan's bathrobe that the man had been just as affected by their kiss as she had. She was so embarrassed by his obvious arousal that she wanted to duck under the water and not come back up. She looked up and saw that he was staring at her with heated eyes. He knew she was looking at him, but his gaze was elsewhere as it lingered on her body, as if he was seeing her like this for the first time. Violet felt restless at the sight of him, suddenly almost angry at the way he was making her feel. You are teasing me," Violet accused him. "I'm the tease." Logan looked at her in surprise. Then the horrible man actually laughed. He laughed so hard that he almost fell in the tub. Violet was completely furious. Why was he doing this to her? She splashed some water on Logan's body with her uninjured arm. It had already been obvious how aroused Logan was, but now it was even more obvious. Both of them froze. Violet felt that she had brought this upon herself and stammered. She could not form words. You. She didn't know what to say. Logan's face turned deadly serious. "I was going to let you go, but apparently you were full of energy." Logan stood and watched her as he untied his robe and stepped into the tub. Violet suddenly forgot why she had been embarrassed, as a wave of desire crashed over her so hard she felt like she was drowning. She no longer cared that she was angry or about her injured arm. She only cared about getting closer to him. She was mentally and physically exhausted after the day she just had. What she needed was comfort. She needed to feel safe and protected. She needed Logan. The two of them finally gave in to their mutual desire. Their passion for each other made more intense by the emotions they'd expressed that day. Logan could not help feeling pleased, and his actions became even more unrestrained. Neither held back, and soon there were sounds coming from the bathroom that would make anyone blush. It had been a horrible day, but now, wrapped in each other's arms, their night ended perfectly. While Logan and Violet were enjoying themselves at home, Garrett was enjoying a night out. He had gone to a bar to relax with his friends after hours. Recently, work had been very busy. He had just joined a newly registered company overseas with Smith Group. He had to find a frontman who could be his proxy. His involvement could not be exposed. Things were coming together exactly as planned, and Garrett struggled to hide his joy. He giddily looked forward to Logan's reaction when he found out the truth. Would he be able to accept it? Would he go crazy? In the dim lights of the bar, the cruel smile on Garrett's face wasn't noticeable. Although he usually listened to his grandmother, Grandma Sarah had told him to get closer to Anna. He did not want to, so instead he went drinking in seedy dive bars. It was the kind of place a lady like Anna would never set foot in. That worked in his favor, because he could avoid her. When he saw Elizabeth was calling him, he took a big swig of his whiskey before picking up. The friend standing beside him jeered and asked whose call was making him grin like that. "It's Elizabeth Kingston," Garrett told him, his grin growing more wicked. His friend whistled. "Dude, I know who that is. She's hot. Tell her to come hang out with us. Elizabeth looks like she knows how to have a good time. Am I right?" Garrett's circle burst into laughter. Elizabeth listened on the other end of the call and could tell that Garrett had gone out drinking. She asked him if it was an inconvenient time to talk and offered to call another time. "Are you willing to come out? I want to introduce a few friends to you." He winked at the young lady beside him. The woman stopped and sat down next to him. "You want me to come?" Actually, Elizabeth was very willing to meet Garrett's friends. A man who was willing to introduce a woman to his friends valued her very much. Logan hadn't wanted her to come to his home, let alone come hang out with his friends. Elizabeth knew this was an environment she could thrive in. With her celebrity status and social skills, she would fit right in at any club. She was given access to the VIP room and bottle service wherever she went. When Garrett told her the name of the bar he was at, Elizabeth wrinkled her nose in disgust, but knew she'd still be going. Not wanting to sound too eager, though, she suddenly told him, "Hold on a moment, I've got to take this other call." Elizabeth then muted her phone and waited for a long moment before jumping back on with Garrett. "Sorry about that," she told him, purposely not mentioning who had called her. Better for him to wonder if it was another man calling. Maybe he'd even think it was Logan. "Okay, sure, I'd love to come." Garrett offered to have his driver come pick her up, but Elizabeth didn't want to attract too much attention, so she decided to steel herself and take a cab. When Elizabeth arrived at the bar, Garrett was very attractive. He met her at the door and walked her back to their corner booth. His posture was very intimate, but Elizabeth did not feel offended. This was how a gentleman was meant to act. "Everyone, this is Elizabeth. Elizabeth, my friends." As Garrett introduced her with a wave of his arm, his friends all cheered and welcomed her. A few slapped Garrett on the back and gave him congratulatory high fives. "Hey, Garrett, why have you been hiding her from us?" one of his friends shouted, and they all laughed. They just couldn't believe that Garrett was on such friendly terms with a big star like Elizabeth Kingston. Episode 233. Elizabeth wants something. Garrett's friends were teasing him about his unexpected friendship with Elizabeth Kingston. She'd even agreed to come and meet them at the bar where they were currently hanging out. "Hey, scoot down. Make room for her. Elizabeth, come sit by me. I don't know what you're doing with that guy anyway," one of Garrett's friends shouted over to her, while seemingly making room for her to sit beside him, causing all his friends to laugh. "It's fine if you make fun of me, but don't scare Elizabeth. She's different from you guys. You have thick skin, and hers is very thin." Garrett pointed his finger at them, but smiled indulgently. "Garrett, you wound us. We wouldn't dare hurt the fair Elizabeth's feelings." Another friend chimed in while holding his chest as if he'd been injured. "Elizabeth is your special guest, so we'll all go shoot pool and give Garrett and the ladies some peace." His friends got up to leave, a few winking at Garrett as they walked past him. They were used to Garrett's effect on women. They knew what a player he was. One look, and they could tell Elizabeth wanted to talk to Garrett. Alone. "Go on now," Garrett told them, Stop drawing attention to her and I'll buy the next round. Drink whatever you want and it's on me. Garrett was in a generous mood. The lively atmosphere of the bar could make him forget his worries for a while. He could let loose here and forget the pressures of work. And now Elizabeth was here, who might be useful to him. Garrett had been surprised when she'd agreed to come out, especially since this was hardly the type of establishment a woman like her would typically frequent. He wondered if she was slumming it with him tonight because Elizabeth wanted something. After his friends left, Garrett and Elizabeth tucked themselves into the corner booth, so Elizabeth would stay hidden in the shadows. Typically, Elizabeth didn't mind the attention she got from both the public and the press, but tonight she wished to remain more anonymous. Not that this was the type of place where paparazzi would be lurking, trolling for celebrity photos. Elizabeth felt the importance of buttering Garrett up. She wished he could replace Logan and become the most important person in Los Angeles. Elizabeth's life would be a lot easier without Miranda pestering her about Logan all the time. Not that Elizabeth didn't want Logan. She did. Every time she saw him, she wanted to throw herself into his arms and let him do whatever he wanted. However, his cold face and icy attitude were definite mood killers. Elizabeth was convinced if she could just get Logan into bed one time, she'd have the man wrapped around her little finger. Everything was riding on what happened at the gala. If she could manage to seduce Logan, all her problems would be solved. Elizabeth wouldn't have to worry about financial security for the rest of her life. She would be the most valuable person in her family if she snagged Logan. All of their problems would be solved. If Mother couldn't get rid of Charles's illegitimate son, Elizabeth would find a way to settle the matter herself. Why shouldn't a woman inherit the family business? At this point, her grandfather had clearly been more open-minded than her father. After all, grandfather had tried to leave everything to Violet, skipping over his own son. Elizabeth was well aware that her family was very unpopular right now. Miranda's list of enemies was always growing. As Miranda's daughter, Elizabeth had to start making her own plans to protect herself. Recently, she had decided to find someone on her own to investigate her father's mistress. She wanted to know what was so special about this woman, that she'd actually given her father the guts to cheat on his wife and father a child. Elizabeth needed to start looking out for herself, but she would need allies. Allies like the man sitting beside her, who had just bought her a drink. Garrett could be very helpful, but she needed to test out Garrett's attitude towards her first. "Where's your little girlfriend? Wherever you are, that Alexander girl is usually not far behind." Elizabeth smiled sweetly and played with her long curly hair. An intoxicating fragrance rushed into Garrett's nose and made him involuntarily inhale. Noticing, Elizabeth pretended to be confused and tilted her head a little closer to look at him in puzzlement. "Is something the matter, Garrett?" "You smell so good," he told her with a seductive smile. "Garrett, should you be saying such things to me? I didn't think we were on such familiar terms," Elizabeth said in a prim manner, revealing a shy expression as she gently lowered her head. "Why are you so familiar with my older brother? It's not fair." Garrett was still smiling. His dimple was deep, and he seemed unrestrained. "It's not the same at all. Logan and I have a different relationship than you and I do," Elizabeth smiled and added. "We've been together for 4 years. Together." Garrett looked at Elizabeth meaningfully. "What do you mean by together?" Dodging his question, she said, "I don't know why Anna is chasing after you, Garrett. The relationship I have with Logan might be the same as yours with Anna." "Then I am relieved. Anna is not chasing after me. We are like brother and sister." It could not be said that they had nothing to do with each other. After all, he and Anna had grown up together. Anna still visited his Grandma Sarah in the Gardner family home all the time. He just tried not to be there when she did. "Liar! I don't believe it." Elizabeth pretended to be a little angry after being led on by him and pouted her lips. Why are we always talking about her? I want to talk about us. Garrett obviously did not want to talk about Anna. Elizabeth took that as confirmation that Garrett did not have a good impression of the young woman. Otherwise, with her status and the history between their families, they might have already gotten engaged by now. It seemed like Garrett didn't want to advance his relationship with the Alexander family. That would make things easier for her. Is there an us to talk about? What's there to talk about between us? We're just friends, having a drink together, Elizabeth told him with a flirtatious smile. Do you see that? Garrett looked over at the people dancing. The bar wasn't large and the dance floor was tiny. Men and women were huddled together and dancing close. What, the people dancing? Elizabeth asked him. She didn't understand what he meant. I want you to look at those people. If you wanted to get up and dance right now, I'd say no. If it was anyone else, I wouldn't care. But because it's you, I wouldn't want you to stand in the middle of that crowd where other men could get too close to you. They might even try and touch you. Do you understand what I mean? Garrett and Logan had the same genes. When they looked at you, the way Garrett was looking at her now, they could make you feel like you were the only thing that mattered in their eyes. However, Elizabeth had never seen such a look in Logan's eyes. Every time she got close to him, Logan would stare at her fiercely with a frown, as if she was a threat to his safety. But Garrett wouldn't do that. This was a normal man. A normal man with good taste would know who was more deserving of his attention. Garrett's eyes were glued to Elizabeth's face. She was not bad looking, he decided. She would not have made it in the entertainment industry if she hadn't been attractive. Still, Garrett thought her face, even with makeup, was a little dull compared to Violet's. It was not that Elizabeth was not good looking, it was just that Garrett was not attracted to her. Garrett's eyelashes fluttered slightly. Why did all the good things belong to his older brother? This world was really unfair. He quickly hid his thoughts and smiled. I'd like to get to know you better, Elizabeth. I think we enjoy each other's company, and I'd like to spend... What about you and Violet? She interrupted him. Your company signed a singing contract with her. Smith Group has also invested in the project. Seems like you two may be quite close. Elizabeth wanted to know how Garrett felt about Violet. Elizabeth didn't know which of them was more important to him, her or Violet. Anna, Violet, why was Elizabeth constantly mentioning other women? Garrett knew she must have ulterior motives for coming out with him tonight. If a woman was with the man she wanted for herself, she wouldn't be bringing up her competition. This wasn't just a hookup. Elizabeth wanted something. Curious about what she wanted to discuss with him, Garrett lazily leaned back against the booth, spreading his arms along the top to get more comfortable. Then he looked her in the eye and asked, Why are you really here, Elizabeth? Episode 234, Dive Bar Deals. Garrett was confident, so his expression was very calm. In Elizabeth's eyes, he looked very masculine, sitting lazily in their booth as he watched her. She wanted to ask him to help her, and she was trying to get a sense of how he felt about her. Garrett, for his part, was suspicious. Elizabeth had obviously met up with him tonight because she needed something, and he wanted to know what it was. What exactly are you getting at, Elizabeth? Garrett asked her again. Better hurry up and tell me the real reason you came here tonight, before my friends return. Actually, I have 2 things I want to ask of you, but... Only then did Elizabeth look directly at him. She tried to look pitiful, but Garrett knew she wasn't a great actress. I keep thinking that it's too much to ask of you. I don't know how to say it. If you can't just spit it out, then why come here? Garrett thought with annoyance. Still, he patiently took Elizabeth's hand and lowered his voice to say, flirtatiously, "We're alone right now. You can tell me anything you want. Isn't it obvious that I would listen to whatever you had to say?" Elizabeth shyly retracted her hand in exchange for Garrett's low smile. "You've been in the industry for quite a few years, right? Why are you still acting so naive, Elizabeth? You should already know why I value you so much," Garrett remarked. Elizabeth smiled at him. She knew many men liked a woman to seem innocent on the outside, but be seductive in the bedroom. This trick is probably how Violet got close to Logan. "Garrett, since you are so good to me, I will say it." Elizabeth quickly launched into her pitch. "I want you to help the Kingston family settle some matters. While you're at it, I also need you to use your job to get closer to my cousin Violet." Garrett was puzzled. He said, "Give it to me straight. I don't quite understand what you mean." Elizabeth told Garrett about Chloe's recent mental state. "My sister has suffered so much. She didn't know what she was doing when she almost killed Violet. I still don't know what my cousin will ask Logan to do to my sister in revenge. I'm afraid that if the problem gets bigger, Chloe will go crazy." Elizabeth thought it best to go over this kind of thing quickly. It was becoming unbearable to repeat the awful story time and time again. Garrett had met Chloe, of course. On the surface, she seemed quite smart, but her thoughts were very shallow. She seemed to act impulsively and was too emotional. By now, Garrett had been seeing through people since he was young. Basically, he could tell what she was up to at a glance. So what? Garrett didn't get it. Did Violet have so much power over his brother that he'd do whatever she asked? He really couldn't tell. Every time he'd seen them together, Logan had seemed to be the one in control, and Violet would be in a muddled state. No one ever knew what she was really thinking. That was part of Violet's allure. She was a puzzle that any man would want to solve. His interest in Violet hadn't decreased. It was only because of Logan that he hadn't tried to do anything about it. But that didn't mean Garrett had given up. He just needed to find a way. The children were taken to live with Agnes in the family home. Violet didn't seem to have tried to fight it. He thought it was because the woman was too gentle and submissive. But if what Elizabeth was saying was true, then Violet was actually very scheming. Chloe's husband Lionel used to be a couple with Violet before she left town. Now she is back, and Lionel still has feelings for her. This is a devastating blow to my sister. So I wonder, Garrett, can you get close to Violet? Let her know that there are many good men in the world, that Lionel is not the only one. Garrett looked at Elizabeth with interest. This woman was really smart. Even without her request, Garrett would have pursued Violet. He would not release her from contract, so he had a whole year to be close to her. He intended to make full use of that time. However, he didn't tell any of this to Elizabeth. "As much as I'd like to help you, I cannot agree, because there is someone else I have my eye on." At the same time Garrett said this, he looked at Elizabeth with a deeply emotional and disappointed look, indicating that the person he liked was her. Garrett didn't want Violet. Elizabeth was secretly delighted. She could tell just by looking into the man's eyes that he wanted her. The way he was staring at her, it was as if he wished he could have Elizabeth immediately. Men could be animals when they thought with their other heads. If Garrett did things right, she might give him a taste of what she had to offer. But now was not the time. If it was too easy to get the prize, he would not cherish it. Elizabeth would not satisfy Garrett so easily. She would definitely make the man earn it. Only by helping her get what she want could a man like him ever hope to win Elizabeth's favor. However, she would not express her feelings in words. She would not emulate the way Chloe treated Lionel. Chloe was very dependent on Lionel, but she also tried to control him. They had actually broken up for a while over this. He ignored Chloe for more than 10 days. At that time, Elizabeth was the one who had persuaded Lionel to come back. After the relationship between the two had stabilized, Elizabeth tried to persuade Chloe to restrain her temper in front of Lionel. However, her sister shot back. "If you know so much about what men want, then why hasn't Logan proposed to you after 4 years?" Sometimes when Chloe spoke, she could really offend others. As her younger sister, Elizabeth couldn't help but worry about her. She thought about what her mother had said to her. She wanted Nora or Paige to become a surrogate and have a baby for Chloe, but she didn't know what Chloe would think of the idea. Her family was such a mess right now. They could only rely on her. Also, Garrett. Although Violet is the heir, according to my grandfather's will, logically speaking, everyone in our family should have the right to claim the inheritance. If you are willing to support me, we might be able to work out a deal regarding the future management of the Kingston group, Elizabeth proposed. "What do you mean?" Garrett asked, suddenly more interested. "You can participate in the stock exchange." Then Elizabeth told Garrett what she was thinking. While there was no one listening, the two of them had a long conversation. They had their heads together, planning and plotting until the bar was about to close. Garrett, very chivalrously, accompanied Elizabeth home. After watching her walk into her house, he ordered the driver to take him home. It didn't take Garrett long to get home. It was the one time of day when the LA freeways weren't gridlocked. The Gardner home was in the older section of Beverly Hills, and their residence was secluded behind a stone security fence. Because this was an older area, the Gardner mansion had 2 acres of land surrounding it. This was an unheard of amount of land in Los Angeles, where a tiny plot could go for 7 figures. The neighboring homes were also sequestered behind large security gates, affording the Gardners complete privacy. Their neighbor to the left was some sort of Saudi prince who was never there, and their other neighbor was an aging film star with a room full of awards. The night was still as his driver pulled up to the front of the house. When Garrett walked in, his grandma Sarah and the staff had already gone to sleep. Since Garrett was out late almost every night, he had instructed the servants to not wait up for him. It could be said that this was considerate on Garrett's part, but really he just wanted them to go to bed so he could enjoy some alone time in the silent house. Garrett kicked off his shoes and threw his coat over a nearby chair. He walked towards the living room, planning to enjoy a nightcap. As he entered the room, he suddenly stopped in his tracks. There was another person already in the room. So much for Garrett's silent alone time. It was Anna. Episode 235. Late Night Visitor. Garrett had just arrived home after his night out with Elizabeth. He'd been planning on enjoying a quiet drink alone in his living room when he discovered Anna on his couch. He wasn't happy to see her. "What are you doing here, Anna?" Garrett asked his late-night visitor angrily. Grandma Sarah had always hoped that Garrett would treat Anna well. After all, Anna was the most important chess piece for the Gardner family's game of revenge with the Alexanders. The problem was, Garrett didn't want her. Now that he had so much on his mind, he just didn't have the energy to deal with Anna. He did not want to lie to Anna like his grandmother had asked him to, so he had been avoiding her instead. It was just that Anna seemed to be unaware of the fact that he just wasn't interested. Garrett didn't know if she was really stupid or if she was just naive. Anna just hadn't ever matured. She was still as childish and naive as when they were kids. Anna had a big heart and no brain. Could it be that Anna really didn't sense the depth of loathing surging between him and Logan? Or did she think that with her identity as an Alexander and Garrett's as a Gardner, a match between them would resolve all the conflicts? Garrett stood coldly facing Anna. He didn't show any signs of being affected by her presence. If Anna wanted to confess her feelings to him again, he would have to set her straight. He was just not attracted to Anna. It was really annoying to keep being pestered by her. "Garrett, you're back." Anna had heard him enter and was now sitting up on the couch. She rubbed her eyes and looked at the time. "It was so late. Where have you been? You didn't even pick up your phone," Anna asked him with a pout. Garrett had silenced his phone while he was busy with Elizabeth and had forgotten to turn it back on. "I was drinking with a friend." "Why are you here?" "Where's Grandma Sarah?" he asked her impatiently. "Grandma is sleeping," Anna told him. "Then why are you still here? Why don't you go home to your own house?" Garrett stalked across the room. He needed a nightcap more than ever. He poured himself a shot of whiskey, but didn't offer anything to his uninvited guest. He didn't want to give Anna any encouragement. She'd be leaving soon. After throwing back his shot, Garrett added, "It's not appropriate to be out at this late hour hanging around other people's houses." "Why are you treating me like I'm a stranger?" Anna's eyes were a little red, and she felt wronged. "I've not seen you in a few days. Your attitude towards me was better before. Why is it that now—" Garrett cut her off. "Last time I saw you, it was because Violet asked me to take you to dinner and talk with you." But when they were in each other's company, Anna didn't seem to be able to say anything to Garrett other than that she liked him. It's not that they could have an adult conversation and he could ask her to keep her distance in the future. Garrett was so angry that he had promised Violet that he would try to get along with Anna. However, now that Violet had signed the contract, he didn't need to pretend to like Anna anymore. "You were taking orders from Violet when you asked me out to dinner?" Anna was furious. She'd been so hopeful after their dinner. Now it turns out that Garrett had only asked her out to please Violet. Garrett had already expressed his interest in Violet. Was he interested in the woman, or could it be that he just wanted her? It couldn't be that he just wanted to be close friends with her, right? Of course, he was interested in the sexual aspect, but Anna was also a woman. She'd seen her reflection in the mirror and thought she looked good. She was much taller than Violet. She was in great shape and younger. She was also an Alexander, which most men would find desirable. What does she have that I don't? Anna did not want to hate Violet. She was her big brother's woman, after all. She unhappily stared at him, waiting for an answer before adding, "You don't like me. Is it because my last name is Alexander, Garrett?" Honestly, Garrett thought that was a good question. He couldn't be sure. Sometimes he didn't even understand his own thoughts. "What if it is?" Garrett asked her. Maybe he was mishandling the Anna situation, he now thought. After all, Anna could be very useful because her last name was Alexander. He wondered how far this woman would go to please him. Would she betray her own family? In the game he was playing with Logan, he had to seize every advantage. Across town, in another stately old mansion, another person was up late. Agnes was in the study of the old residence reading over some documents. There was a board meeting tomorrow, and she wanted to be prepared. She was so busy caring for Adam and Amy during the day that she often used the quiet hours after they went to sleep to catch up on work. Agnes heard a light knock on the door and motioned Alex to come in when she saw it was him. "I was on my way to bed, but I wanted to inform you that Miss Anna has not returned home yet." Agnes sighed. Although this was not unusual behavior on the young woman's part, it had been at least a week since she'd last seen Anna. She knew Anna avoided coming home to the Alexander house whenever possible. Agnes knew her granddaughter was afraid of her. She'd probably chosen to stay with her mother at her beach house again. That didn't concern Agnes. It was the other place Anna could be that did. The Gardner house. "Dare I ask where she is, if not here?" Agnes looked up at Alex. Alex joined her in sighing. "It appears that she has gone to the Gardner home." Anna's stubbornness usually worked in her favor, but even an old man like Alex could tell that the Gardner kid had no interest in her. She just couldn't let it go. She kept chasing after him, even though Garrett had rejected her time and time again. That girl, I can't care about her anymore. If she wants to go gallivanting over to the gardener's to throw herself at Garrett, I can't stop her. And Lord knows we've tried. That old gardener hag must be so happy that she's coaxed this girl over to their side." Agnes shook her head in frustration. She was quite worried. Although she had never liked Anna's mother, her granddaughter had Alexander blood. She couldn't believe Anna was cozying up to outsiders like this. The girl had practically forgotten what her last name was. Alex thought that it was good that the young lady did not work for Smith Group. He really didn't want to think about what consequences that could cause. All Garrett would have to do was smile at the girl and she would start divulging company secrets. As is, Anna's infatuation could still potentially cause serious problems. Still, he tried to assure Agnes. The company's matters are all in Logan's hands. If only he had reliable siblings to help share some of the burdens. Even with Anna's reputation, if she was trustworthy, Agnes would be able to bring her on to help Logan. With the current situation, however, it was obvious that Anna had only love on the brain. "Do you want to call Logan tomorrow and ask him to speak to Anna?" Alex suggested. "It's pointless. It would only be another distraction from work, and we both know Logan's currently distracted enough already." Agnes then added, "The girl is harassing Garrett. Ultimately, the rejection will need to come from him. All we can do is wait for that to happen," Agnes responded. The Alexander family could not pressure the Gardners. If Garrett didn't want Anna, no one would be able to force her on him. It was better to let the young people find their own paths. Episode 236, Morning School Run. The next day, Logan and Violet got up early and asked Henry to drive them to the old residence so that they could take Adam and Amy to school. They sat beside each other in the back seat. Both of them were very tired after their late night together, but Violet had still insisted on doing the morning school run. She missed her children too much. Along the way, Logan kept yawning, which then made Violet yawn. "Don't yawn. It makes me want to yawn," Violet told him testily. Logan raised his eyebrow. "Not much of a morning person, are you? I told you need to stay in bed and get some sleep. I said not to worry, that you would definitely see the children this week. You just couldn't wait." When he'd woken up, Logan hadn't wanted to get out of bed and go to work. Violet was curled up beside him, and after their passionate night together, he'd wanted to stay home to sleep and cuddle with her all day. But Violet insisted they get up to take the kids to school. "Of course I couldn't wait, and it's your fault we're both this tired," Violet told him primly. "Me? I seem to remember an equal amount of enthusiasm on your part. You probably kept the whole house up with your screaming," he replied dryly. Violet muttered a few choice words of dissatisfaction under her breath. Tired or not, she missed the children too much not to come, especially after what had happened yesterday. Chloe had almost pulled her off a balcony. If she had died, what would have become of the children? They would have been devastated. When they got to the old residence, Adam and Amy had already finished breakfast and were ready to go to school. While Violet waited in the car, Logan got out and walked towards the house. He never made it inside, though, as the two little monkeys burst through the front door and jumped into Logan's arms, screaming, "Daddy!" at the same time. "We miss you so much, Daddy," Adam told him, a bit red-cheeked from blushing. He was embarrassed to express his feelings. His great-grandmother had spoken to him. Although Daddy was busy with work, he called every day to ask how they were. They wanted to let Daddy know that they also loved him very much. Of course, there was also Mommy. Adam didn't see her. Had she not come with him? Adam wondered gloomily. "You guys will come home and stay with us for 2 days this week. Are you happy?" Logan asked them. "Yes," they both shouted. "Excuse me, but isn't this their home?" Agnes asked Logan, a bit peevishly. She had followed the children outside and heard what he'd just said. "Grandmother, you know I didn't mean it like that. It's just that my home is also the children's home," Logan replied, trying to pacify her. "When are we going? Great-Grandma should also come with us. Daddy said to be kind to Great-Grandma," Amy said. Agnes didn't expect her grandson to be so good at educating his children. The discomfort in her heart completely disappeared. She looked at her grandson and decided not to take his words to heart this time. Right now, Agnes needed to talk to Logan about the other woman in his life. "Logan, your mother will be back in a few days. When that time comes..." Logan interrupted Agnes with a groan. His mother's only real talent was causing chaos. He and his mother were not close. Joanna would try, like always, to use this visit to foster a relationship with her oldest son. She would try to introduce him to potential girlfriends and set him up on blind dates. His mother figured if she could plant someone close to Logan, she could use his girlfriend to shorten the distance between her and her son. This is what Logan hated the most. What did she think she was doing? "I think we have enough grandmothers already. Besides, we are not like normal families." Logan was very arrogant, and his tone was very blunt. "You are my grandmother, and I will listen to you. But that woman means nothing to me." "You crawled out of her womb." Agnes was a little angry. She was upset that Logan kept going against her wishes and did not respect his biological mother. What would people think if they saw him acting this way? "Please don't say it like that. The children can hear you. Grandmother, you have not spoken to me like that before. Has something happened to put you in a bad mood recently? Why don't you let Alex take you out more often?" Logan smirked. He was still a child in his grandmother's eyes. Violet watched them from inside the car with a smile. At that moment, she was a little nervous and didn't know if she should get out of the car and greet Agnes. "Who said that I'm in a bad mood?" Agnes scoffed. "I have 2 great-grandchildren to dote on. You don't know how my mood is." They walked back to the car together. Logan carried one child in his arms and held the other's hand. The twins were as happy as if they were celebrating their birthday. They hadn't seen Uncle Logan, Daddy, in a few days. Amy wished she could cling to Logan's body like a koala. Adam, on the other hand, was like a young adult. His face was serious, and only a slight smile could be seen in the corner of his mouth, revealing his good mood. The more Agnes looked at him, the more he resembled Logan when he was younger. No matter what he looked like, Agnes could not get enough of him. Agnes hadn't seen Logan in a few days, and she had missed him too. The twins also missed their mother. It was good to see at least one parent, but Adam and Amy didn't know they had both come. "Okay, it's time to get to school, and Alexander is never late," Agnes instructed them. "Great-Grandma will ask our cook to bake a strawberry shortcake for you to eat after school. 1 for each of you, okay?" "I want a big one," Amy said quickly, as afraid that she would miss it. "Okay, a big one." Agnes was so happy that she couldn't stop grinning. Ever since the 2 children moved into the old house, the atmosphere in the house had become much livelier. From morning to night, the house was filled with laughter. Logan smiled and didn't say anything. He had asked Violet not to get out of the car. Now that Agnes was standing beside it, Violet would seem rude if she didn't greet Agnes, so she opened the door. "Mommy!" To Adam and Amy, it was a huge surprise. Mommy had actually come. Agnes's face suddenly tensed up. She gave Logan a withering look. She remembered telling Logan before that Violet was not allowed to come to the old residence. Why did he bring her here? This grandson of hers. He was becoming more and more disobedient. Maybe he should not be so soft-hearted. He seemed too free and unfettered. But there was one thing that her grandson had gotten right. It was time for them to become a family. "Mommy, are you playing hide and seek with us? Adam and I thought you didn't come," Amy said. Yes, Mommy missed you so much, so she came with Daddy, Violet said as she gave them a hug. Violet called out, "Good morning," to Agnes, who nodded, but did not reply to her. Violet didn't say anything else and had an awkward smile on her face. She tried her best not to let the children see that something was wrong. "Your mother should be home by this weekend," Agnes told Logan. "Don't forget to make arrangements." Logan said nothing. While she was in the city, they would definitely have to host Joanna a few times. Logan had always held a grudge against his mother. After so many years, maybe it was time for him to let it go. It might be better for him to try to get along with his mother. "Don't be late. Great-grandmother will come back early to eat with you guys tonight." Agnes signaled to Alex to bring the children's school items to the car. "Take them to school now," Agnes told Henry. "My driver will pick them up later." Violet had hoped that Agnes would let her take the children back to Logan's home tonight. She tried to secretly send Logan a message with looks, but the obtuse man didn't seem to get it. Violet opened her mouth, but then didn't say anything. She decided she should be satisfied that Logan had brought her here. He had said the children would come visit this week, so she would have to trust him. Alex smiled and nodded at Violet before she got in the car, which made her feel better. Even though she had never thought of joining the Alexander family, this treatment made her feel silently humiliated. Violet couldn't ignore the fact that Agnes's disgust hurt her feelings. "All right, I got it. Let's go now." Logan hadn't understood what Violet had been trying to tell her. He just knew that his grandmother didn't like Violet, so he would try to keep them apart. He squeezed Violet's shoulder to comfort her as they all climbed into the car and left. Episode 237, Young People Today. After Logan, Violet, and the twins left for school, Agnes vented to Alex. "My grandson is getting more and more frivolous. I've never seen him like this before, and it's all because of that woman." "Young people are always like this. They can't help it. I feel glad that Logan has more people in his life than before." Alex sincerely felt that Logan's current circumstances were not bad. There was a smile in his eyes, and there was a new lightness about him. He was becoming more mature and responsible. If it weren't for his parents, Logan would have suffered so much when he was young. Even as a child, he had to put on a brave face every day. And then he encountered the Kingstons and their scheming. "That's why this woman took advantage of his weakness," Agnes blurted out. "But Violet was also drugged that night," Alex argued gently. "That's what Violet told us. Who knows if it's true or not? I don't believe it. It seems like too big of a coincidence." Agnes didn't believe a single word that Violet had said. Perhaps it was a plot that the Kingston family put together to get her grandson under their control. "Logan doesn't like Elizabeth. I have seen through her all these years. I still think that the Kingston family will part ways with the Smith group sooner or later. There is no need for us to provide any assistance to them. Who would have thought that another Elizabeth would come around? Who would believe that the Kingstons didn't plan her arrival?" Agnes fumed. Alex didn't say anything. He knew Agnes had a temper. The more he tried to persuade her, the more suspicious she would become. If the Kingstons were lying, they would not be able to keep up a false pretense forever. Sooner or later, the truth would come out. Alex didn't believe that the Kingston family and Violet were working together. The Kingstons were constantly trying to kill her. Alex also told Agnes about the incident at the hospital with Chloe. She hadn't heard the story yet, and her hatred for the Kingston family deepened as Alex spoke. "My goodness, what a mess that girl made. I didn't expect that the Kingstons would make such fools of themselves," Agnes said while shaking her head. Alex shrugged his shoulders helplessly. He couldn't disagree with her. The Kingstons were a mess. "Should we find someone to keep an eye on them?" Agnes asked him. "I don't want them to take us down with them if their situation grows desperate. After all, we have many joint investments with the Kingstons." Alex nodded his head in agreement with her. "I will make the arrangements personally." After chatting for a while longer, Agnes brought up Logan's kidnapping with Alex and sighed. Agnes couldn't help but think of the way Logan would send people to check the crime scene every year to see if there was any trace of the little girl who had saved him back then. After so many years, everyone told him that it was just his imagination. He gradually began to calm down and no longer stubbornly looked for the so-called little girl who had helped him in the past. But Agnes knew that his heart had never let go. Agnes and Alex had talked about this many times. How could there have been a little girl? It must have just been the child's imagination after he fell into a desperate situation. He had made this girl up so he could believe there was one person who would sincerely protect him. Every child wanted a guardian angel. Logan's parents had been so caught up in their own problems, he wouldn't have imagined them saving him. And unfortunately, Agnes knew Logan wouldn't expect his grandmother to be his hero either. She'd been too strict with Logan when he was young. Agnes knew somewhere deep down in his heart that he still might harbor feelings of affection for her. She let out a long sigh. She didn't regret raising him that way. "That's all in the past," Alex said to her. "Our young man has a long and prosperous life ahead of him. The most important thing for you right now is to take care of your health. You have Logan and his children by your side. They will keep you company. In the future, your life will be very good." "But I'm still worried about our investments. There shouldn't be any problems with our partnership with the Gardner family, right?" Back in the day, the two families had been close friends. There were many business collaborations, and their children grew up together. Who would have thought that they would encounter such a huge problem down the road? Not only did a few businesses lose their capital, but the money that the two families had invested together had also gone down the drain. The last time they lost money was when Jackson died. Although Agnes felt that Jackson and Joanna had betrayed her son, she'd also spent years treating Jackson like her nephew. When she heard the tragic news of his death, she was sincerely saddened. The Gardner family was in a difficult situation. Agnes naturally wanted to help where she could, and that was why she was still in a partnership with the Gardners today. Logan couldn't understand her painstaking efforts. He had always been suspicious of the Gardner family, which made things very difficult for her. With Violet in the middle, the situation had become even more complicated. Agnes couldn't allow Violet to stay in Logan's house any longer. This next generation is very disobedient. Young people today only seem to know how to oppose their elders. Agnes believed this. All of them were like this. Whether it was Logan, Anna, or Garrett, none of them could satisfy their families. "You said that Violet signed a contract with the Laurie Group for a year. We shouldn't waste that time," Agnes said thoughtfully. A plan was forming in her mind. "What do you mean by that?" Alex frowned. He didn't know why she had suddenly pivoted back to Violet. "Isn't Violet very good with men? Don't they all chase after her? Go ahead and call Lee and ask her to come over tomorrow. I have something for her to do." Agnes decided that if Violet and Garrett had an affair, then every problem the Alexanders currently had would be solved. If Violet cheated with Garrett, she wouldn't have the audacity to take the children from the Alexander family. Then the twins could subsequently be raised by Agnes. As a bonus, if Violet and Garrett were caught together, Anna would also have to give up on her fantasies about Garrett. There was no need to mention Logan. He would never take a second look at a woman who cheated on him with another man, let alone with the brother he despised. Logan would never become his father. As far as Agnes was concerned, Violet and Logan's relationship was nothing more than a social climber latching on to a successful man. Yes, Logan seemed to be extremely attracted to Violet, but Agnes felt that his desire would eventually burn out. She just didn't want to wait for that to happen. Agnes wanted Violet gone as soon as possible. They couldn't let Logan's future be potentially ruined by this reckless woman. Agnes believed she was on the right side of the matter. She was thinking about her grandson, her very important grandson, and the entire Alexander family's future. It was up to her to protect her family. She couldn't trust these young people to do what she thought was best. Alex saw through her act, but he didn't say anything, even though he personally didn't agree with her. Episode 238. I saw you peeking at Mommy. After the car door shut, they pulled out of the old residence driveway. Adam, Amy, and Violet exploded into giddy happiness. They had been restrained in front of Agnes. The rules of the Alexander family were very strict, and none of them wanted to be disrespectful. But now that they were alone, it was amazing. The twins were hugging and kissing Violet as if they hadn't seen their mommy in years. They were so happy they became very loud and animated, shouting over one another to be heard. Logan watched quietly while the children peppered Violet with questions. Amy asked her mommy why she was so busy recently and why she didn't bring them home. Adam and Amy really missed Mommy and Daddy. They also asked when they could stay with Daddy and Mommy and when their parents would finish their work. Adam and Amy seemed blissfully ignorant of the tension between their mommy and great-grandmother, and they didn't know anything about what had happened to Violet at the hospital. It seemed like the staff of the Alexander household didn't gossip in front of the children. Agnes protected the children well, and Alex was very strict with his staff. For that, Violet was grateful. Putting aside Agnes's selfish motive of wanting Adam and Amy to abandon their mother, Violet could see that Agnes was taking good care of her children. She obviously was spending a lot of time with the twins, and as they told Violet everything they had done at Great-Grandma's house, she could see that they weren't unhappy. They even seemed to be developing genuine affection for the older woman. Violet would be more pleased about this if Agnes wasn't so hostile. The twins obviously missed their mother, and she had missed them, desperately. Do you guys want to see your godparents? Violet changed the topic. After all, she wouldn't say anything negative in front of the children. She wouldn't say that she was struggling. She wouldn't say that she was resentful that their great-grandmother had taken them away. And she wouldn't say that she wished Daddy had insisted the children stay with their parents. Mommy, I really want to see my godparents, so can we go out and play with them this week? Adam thought about how much he loved Haley and Noah. He was very happy living with Great-Grandma, but he worried his godparents might think he had forgotten about them. Although the twins were loved and pampered by the Alexanders, they would never forget that when their mummy was busy working and making money, it was Noah, Daddy, and Haley who had taken care of them. They bought toys and delicious food and played with them. Children were simple. Anyone who treated them well, they would love. The twins didn't recognize the Kingstons as their family. They had not liked Miranda and Elizabeth when they had met them. Miranda had hurt Amy, and Elizabeth had accused Adam of lying. The only Kingston that mattered in their young hearts was Mommy. And Mommy was the kindest and most beautiful woman in the world. Mommy and Daddy, Amy and I miss you so much, Adam told them. Violet smiled and looked at her children gently. The light in her eyes almost blinded Logan. He had never seen such a warm and moving look that was filled with so much love. He stared at Violet in a trance. Amy rolled her eyes and snuggled into Logan's side. She kissed Logan's cheek, then asked, Daddy, is Mommy the prettiest? I saw you peeking at Mommy. Violet and Logan both choked and sputtered. Henry could barely contain his laughter in the driver's seat. His stoic young boss was making eyes at a woman like a lovesick teenager, and he'd been called out by his daughter. Henry snorted, trying to contain himself. "Henry, pay attention to the road, please," Logan reminded him, dryly. Henry glanced in the rearview mirror and saw Logan raise an eyebrow at his longtime driver. Logan had contained his surprise and now calmly tickled Amy's little nose to punish her. Violet could barely hold it together. She was blushing and could see how amused Henry was. What was Logan thinking? The children were here with them. What did that man need to stare at? Didn't he see her every day? "Daddy, are you going to come play with us too?" Amy asked him. Violet had promised the twins that the next time they saw each other, they would go for a long walk and visit their grandpa Kenneth at the cemetery, which was kind of like a park. The children couldn't wait. "Yes, Daddy, you're coming with us to see Grandpa, right?" Adam also asked, as he looked at Logan with his big eyes, full of anticipation. Logan had told Violet he would go with her in front of Haley and Noah. He had said he'd go without asking her if she wanted him to. What if she didn't want him there during such a personal moment? Logan never would have thought that he would worry about what effect his actions would have on Violet's feelings. He must have gone crazy. He was Logan Alexander. Since when was he so soft? He always did what he wanted to do. "Amy, Adam, give Daddy some space. He is busy with work." Violet noticed that Logan hadn't answered the children and thought that he didn't want to go. He had told Haley and Noah at dinner that he would go with Violet, but maybe he'd thought more about it and changed his mind. With their unusual relationship, why would he accompany her to pay her respects to Kenneth? "Of course, I'm going. I already said I would, didn't I?" Logan suddenly spoke, startling Violet. She didn't expect him to actually want to go. "I'll hurry up and finish my work today so that I can spare some time tomorrow. How does that sound?" Logan asked the children. "Yeah, we can go together with Mommy and Daddy." Amy kissed Logan's cheek again. She snuggled in even closer to him, refusing to give him any space. "Yesterday, Amy said that she missed Mommy," Adam said as he watched his sister. She only hugged and kissed their daddy. It seemed that his sister had become a daddy's little girl. "Really?" Violet exclaimed. "I can't even tell. Amy seems to be doing fine as long as Daddy is around." Violet was just teasing, but she was a little jealous. A child that she carried for 9 months and painstakingly raised for such a long time was choosing someone else over her. Logan usually had an unwelcoming expression on his face, but he was always very good with the children. When he was with them, he gave them his full attention. No wonder the children clung to him. Even Adam, who was usually so calm and collected, would blush and lie on Logan's shoulder with a happy face when his dad carried him. She knew the two little kids were not discriminating against her. They had just wanted to find their daddy for so long that, now that they had, they didn't want to let go. "No, I also really miss Mommy," Amy quickly swore. "And here I thought you'd forgotten all about me," Violet teased her again. Amy rolled her eyes as she thought about how to make Violet happy, while rosy-faced Adam hugged Violet and said that he definitely thought about his mummy all the time. Violet's heart melted as she hugged her child tightly. This was the first time in her life that Violet felt the benefits of money and power. If she could get the Kingston family off her back and claim her inheritance, the first thing she would do is bring the children back to live with her. Violet wouldn't be separated from them a moment longer than she had to be. Violet smiled at the thought. She gently stroked Adam's hair, then leaned down to kiss the top of his head. Violet's thoughts were elsewhere, so she didn't notice Logan peeking at her again. Episode 239. Lowest of the Low. When they arrived at school, Logan insisted on walking the children to their classroom. He asked Violet to go with them. The two of them had not appeared here together before. The principal was flustered when she heard Logan was there and quickly came to greet him personally. The principal was Noah's older sister, Wendy, and she had met both Violet and Logan previously. Still, she was a little taken aback to see them at the school together. It was as if they were just ordinary parents doing the morning school run, when Wendy knew the couple was far from ordinary. Violet stood at the classroom door while Logan spoke with the principal. She was watching the children play games with their friends. Adam and Amy looked happy and seemed to fit right in. From time to time, the twins pointed at her and Logan outside the classroom and said something to their friends. Violet smiled and waved at them. Her friends waved back at her. They were very cute. Amy was leading the children, and Adam was also very popular. She saw a little girl stuff something into Adam's pocket. It was probably a delicious treat. Violet was lost in thought as she watched. After Logan finished chatting with the principal, he called her over, and they left. Wendy stayed to speak with the twins' classroom teacher. She wanted to make sure that the teacher knew if there was ever an issue with either of the twins, Logan wanted to be the first to know. "Does this mean that Mr. Alexander and Miss Kingston have dropped the act?" the teacher asked the principal. "They seem to have a very good relationship." "That's none of our business. Just take care of the children," Wendy replied sternly as the bell rang. Adam and Amy had entered the classroom just a moment before and secretly overheard the exchange with their teacher. They decided they would wait until tonight and ask Great-Grandma what dropped the act meant. Logan and Corey arrived at work at the same time. The two of them rode the elevator up together. The employees on the executive floor had been busy all morning. When they walked in, Drake and the other assistants greeted them. Drake had been given more responsibilities lately. Corey went over to him as soon as he arrived. Corey looked at the schedule for the day. It seemed there was a board meeting and several conference calls scheduled. Corey asked Logan if he wanted anything added to the schedule. Logan was in a good mood. His mind was filled with images of how happy and beautiful Violet had looked when she spoke with the children. The children's birthday was coming up. It was actually the same day as Logan's. He wanted to surprise them by buying and fixing up the old Kingston family mansion. It would be a birthday gift for the children that would also make their mother very happy. It was the first birthday they would all spend together, and he wanted it to be special. He didn't have a lot of time, so he enlisted Corey to start helping him make the arrangements. "Okay, noted. I'll make inquiries. Anything else you need done today? Do you have any plans this evening, or will you be going home at the normal time?" Corey asked. Logan's good mood immediately turned a bit sour. He remembered he had told Elizabeth he would escort her to tonight's gala. Having considered it, Logan had decided he would help her one final time. He'd made it clear to Elizabeth that after tonight, their arrangement of the past 4 years would be over. Still, Logan knew Violet would be unhappy when she heard. Logan told Corey about the gala and asked him to make the necessary arrangements for the evening, including calling Tom to provide Elizabeth with a dress. Corey raised his eyebrows at Logan's request. The boss was taking Elizabeth out tonight? What would Violet think about that? Did she know? Corey opened his mouth to question Logan, but seeing the dark look on his boss's face, he closed it again and said nothing. John had gotten himself into a very bad situation. He was not a good man. He had been a follower of Old Man Rutherford since they were both young men. John had committed many crimes and done many awful things. He had been on the wrong side of the law his whole life. Now, he wasn't a young thug anymore. He was a middle-aged thug. He was still tall and strong, but work had dried up for him in the last few years. He'd had to rely on old contacts to get jobs. Contacts like Max Rutherford. This was how John had gotten involved with the Kingstons. His latest job for the Kingston family had landed him in jail. He didn't dare contact the person who had hired him to carry out the job. He would get no sympathy from Chloe Kingston after what had gone down. Still, he had other contacts in Chloe's family, and John knew they must be desperate to keep him quiet. John had done many bad things out in the open, and also in the dark. He could not remember them all, but he didn't regret any of the things he'd done. He'd needed the money. His parents were old, they were not in good health, and his father needed money for his treatments. What was the use of being kind? What was the use of being a good person? Kind and good didn't pay as well as dark and dirty. To be honest, John had not even wanted to take on the job for Chloe. At first, he refused to do it. But then his father's condition worsened. He needed money urgently, so he agreed to Chloe's request. Although John had committed many crimes, he was still a loving son. He had seen pictures of Miss Violet Kingston before, but on the day of the job, he was afraid that something unexpected would happen. John had turned down all the lights in the room. He didn't even see the woman's face clearly before starting the attack. He had been promised that as long as he had physical contact with Violet and Logan see her scandalized, he would be able to retire. Instead, the whole job had been an epic failure. Not only had John attacked the woman that hired him, but he also caused her to miscarry. Now, he was not only facing a charge of attempted rape, but also first-degree murder. At that time, he'd been so excited that he was about to explode, and it had all been for nothing. Could it be that karma compensated him for what he had done in the past? From his experiences with Chloe and Miranda, it was not surprising that they would throw him to the wolves. He'd been in prison for a few days and didn't know how his family was doing. No one from the Kingston family came forward to protect him. This was different from what they had previously agreed on. He could tell the other inmates saw him as a marked man. He was a criminal, but he was actually afraid. He was beaten up several times as soon as he entered the prison. John expected it. After all, rape was a terrible crime. He was accused of hurting a pregnant woman. It made the other inmates look down on him, even though they were all in jail. There were different types of criminals. For some, like him, who'd attacked a woman and killed her unborn child, he was considered the lowest of the low. It was practically expected for him to be bullied and beaten up. Everyone just closed their eyes to it. It didn't matter that he was miserable. But when John thought about his father and mother, he regretted having nothing in his middle age. He wished his parents had passed on so he could live out his days behind bars in relative peace. However, in this situation, the old man at home was still sick, and there was nothing John could do about it. The Kingstons had betrayed him. He had to think of a way to get out of here. John had been hesitating about whether or not he should do something. It had come to his attention that someone was secretly trying to get in touch with him. This person wanted to talk to John about what had happened, but John didn't know who it was. He was still waiting for the Kingstons to fulfill their promise to help him if he was arrested. Until it came down to the last moment, he didn't want to become their enemy. If he offended Max Rutherford, it would be hard for him to survive on the streets. The Kingstons had agreed to give him money to put towards his father's treatments. At most, John would go to jail if he got caught. Then, after 10 days, he would be able to find someone to treat his father, and the Kingstons would make sure that nothing happened to him. John lay awake every night, holding out hope that the Kingstons would come through for him. But given his history with the family, he wasn't holding his breath. Episode 240. Ready to Talk. John was fearless in the outside world. Outside the prison walls, ordinary citizens didn't dare to provoke him. But inside these walls, John was considered the lowest of the low, a rapist and a child killer. He knew the other inmates saw him as a marked man. Who would have thought that all his bad karma was waiting for him in prison? He was facing rape and murder charges for the attack on Chloe Kingston. For the first time, John felt true fear. He was not afraid of the legal system throwing the book at him. He was afraid of being killed in prison first. Tonight he had gotten used to the darkness. His eyes detected a bit of light. He felt that something was wrong. After noticing a rustling sound, he carefully opened his eyes a sliver and observed the shadows in his cell. He steadied his heart and calmed his mind. He was afraid, but he also felt the familiar rush of adrenaline that made him bloodthirsty and excited. There were a total of 5 people in the cell. His bed was at the outermost part of the cell. At this moment, he could clearly feel it, that someone was approaching him. Because he had always followed Old Man Rutherford, he'd experienced many things from a young age. Right now, he could clearly feel a sense of danger that made his hair stand on end. This person wanted to kill him. That light he had seen was a blade. John didn't have a weapon of his own. None of his cellmates would help him. There were no allies in jail for criminals who had committed John's crimes. He wasn't sure who had given the other inmate the contraband weapon, but he knew it was someone connected to the Kingston family. The Kingstons didn't want him to talk, and they'd hired someone to kill him and shut him up. If John died, no one would ever know the truth about the attack. John still didn't know how Chloe had ended up in the hotel room with him. It had been dark, and he hadn't seen that the woman in the room was the woman who had hired him. Although he had claimed that Violet had arranged to meet him because they were having an affair, almost no one believed him. Violet's scandal also targeted the Smith Group and its CEO, Logan Alexander. John was no match for Logan. They were on 2 very different levels. He could have told the investigators that Violet had seduced him to get his help with the Kingstons and to mislead Logan. But now, Violet had evidence that she was not there, and Logan was even her alibi. Why did John insist that the woman he was with was Violet? This had aroused many people's suspicion, including Logan himself. John suspected Logan was the mysterious person trying to get a hold of him. A prison guard had been bribed to tell John that if he wanted to talk, he knew someone very important who wanted to listen. It had to be Logan. What exactly did he want to know? All of these thoughts flashed through John's mind in the moments before his attacker lunged at him. John managed to grab his attacker by the throat before he pounced on him and pressed him down tightly onto the bed. The man still wanted to struggle, but he had already lost control of the situation. John had reached middle age, and while that might seem older for a criminal, only the strongest managed to stay alive to see their twilight years. The prison alarm rang out quickly. The guards quickly subdued the inmates. The offending party only said that he could not stand John attacking a woman and wanted to teach him a lesson. The other man claimed he didn't really want to kill John, but he would not say where the knife had come from. It was not that easy. How could anyone be fooled by that explanation? The prison guards knew that it was not a random attack. There was something fishy going on. There must have been some outside force involved, so the prison officials quickly began an investigation to get to the bottom of the attack. John was placed in protective custody until they could figure out who had wanted to kill him. After the attack on his life, John seemed to have a mental breakdown. This kind of thing could happen again, one attack after another. Who could guarantee that only one prisoner would be bribed? There was no way to live under these conditions. At some point, the guards would complete their investigation into the attack, and John would be placed back with the general prison population. Although John could not sleep at night, it didn't mean that he didn't want to sleep. If his future in the prison involved constantly checking over his shoulder for the next attack on his life, he'd rather be dead. Although he was in jail, it was better to strive for a decent life on the inside than to die. John needed to cut a deal. He instantly made up his mind and slapped the window of his jail cell, requesting to see the prison guard. John was ready to talk. "Is there any news?" Logan asked Corey. He threw down the pen in his hand and lazily leaned against the back of his chair. "It's only been a few days. Are you sure it's not an act?" He thought John had broken rather quickly. "It probably isn't an act, given that he was almost just murdered in prison." Corey told Logan about the attempt on John's life by another inmate. "It looks like Max Rutherford has lost his patience. He wants to kill John to shut him up," Logan replied. Logan and his team could not let John die. "How did you know it was Max Rutherford?" Corey asked Logan, a bit surprised. "Besides Max, who else could it be? Charles isn't capable of such ruthlessness and only cares about his pregnant mistress. Chloe's in the hospital. Miranda is ruthless enough to want John killed, but wouldn't want to get her hands dirty. It only makes sense. She turned to her dear old dad," Logan concluded with a shrug. As far as Logan was concerned, the Kingstons had finally crossed the line. They'd endangered his children, Violet, his company, and himself. It was time for retribution. There was a lot of ambition behind these calculated acts against them. Although Miranda should not have overestimated her capabilities, it was her fault for influencing her daughter to think she was smarter than everyone else. Chloe was only good at formulating plots that didn't quite work out. Her schemes were so immoral and extreme that they were leading her down a dangerous path. Although he really wanted to send Chloe on her way right now, Logan felt that the woman was still useful. After all, once Chloe was gone, Lionel would have more reason to pursue Violet. That was something Logan could not allow. Violet said she no longer had feelings for her childhood sweetheart, and Logan wanted to trust her. The problem was, he didn't trust Lionel. "Then what should we do now?" Corey asked. "Let's get this man a deal first. He will be useful later," Logan instructed Corey. "As for Chloe, I think her attention will be diverted soon enough." "What do you mean?" Corey asked. "Currently the Kingston family is in upheaval. Kenneth had intended for Violet to inherit everything, including the company. With Charles and Miranda struggling, Chloe and Elizabeth will have more reason than ever to come after Violet. And don't forget Lionel's role in all of this." Logan looked at Corey knowingly, as he added, "I think the Kingston family is about to encounter a whole new set of problems."